Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Be Well reading series. I am your host for the evening, Nicole Tallman, and we are joined tonight by three phenomenal poets. We have Jaswinder Bolina, we have Leslie Sainz, and we have Pantea Tofangchi. And just to give you a quick run of show, I am going to read each person's bio. We'll go in alphabetical order of last name. Each of our featured readers will read for 15 minutes or so, and then we'll reserve a few minutes at the end for Q&A if anyone has any questions. And I'm going to ask everyone who's not reading at the moment to please mute yourself so that we don't have any background interference. So to get us started, we have Jaswinder Bolina, whose fourth collection, English as a Second Language and Other Poems, is available now from Copper Canyon Press. He is the author of three previous books of poetry, The 44th of July, Phantom Camera, and Carrier Wave, and of the digital chat book, The Tallest Building in America. His debut collection of essays of color is also available for McSweeney's, and he teaches on the faculty of the MFA program in creative writing at the University of Miami. Let's give a warm welcome to Jaswinder. One more thing I want to say quickly before you get started. I'm going to be popping links to the poets' books in the chat. Okay, so if you could please support our poets by purchasing their books, that would be fantastic. All right, my friend, you're up. Take it.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for hosting this. And yeah, thank you for dealing with, I might have a little bit of a cough. I'm just getting over a bit of a cold. But yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm just going to read, I think I counted out 5 or 6 poems from this. And it just came out at the end of October. So I'm going to start by reading just the title poem, English as a Second Language, which is I've just started to do that with this book. It's the first poem in the book, and it sort of sets some things up. It's a poem that's based on a true story, but it's not my story. It is the true story of the first time my father ever ate a hot dog, and it's called English as a Second Language. We came upon a line of English eating dog, we thought, on plump bread, steamed and slathered with a drab yellow chutney from a cart in the Kew Gardens. Villains, they looked to us, offending nature. But we asked the dogwallah for one apiece, me, your Gyan uncle, and the elder Sahota, who held up 7 fingers, then pointed to the sky, a code of theirs he'd broken. The dogwallah just shook his head, counted our shillings, surrendered 3 green glass bottles of 7-Up, 3 warm logs in aluminium. In 1967, you could hear a song by the Beatles on anybody's radio. But what did the Beatles know about us, huddled together in our conspiracy on a bench beneath a kind of tree I'd never seen before? Anyway, we were young and having fun. The shit-eating grin on Gyan's face as we brought the dog meat to our mouths. When you sack the villain's estate, you have to raid the villain's kitchen. You dress in his topcoat and drink his gin. You set his horses free and drive them home through the rain. You see, we weren't afraid. We didn't come here to become like them. We came here to eat. I'm going to jump ahead to another poem, I guess, about immigration. A lot of these poems were written during the pandemic, and during the pandemic, there was not a ton to do. And my wife and I got kind of into watching House Hunters International and House Hunters because we couldn't go anywhere. It was a way to see places we couldn't be. And that, of course, inspired 2 poems. One is House Hunters International, which I'm going to leave for the book. I'm just going to read the House Hunters poem. So, House Hunters. From a hill road above the thicket of tanning salons, Ubers, and brew pubs crowding the main street, she caught sight of it at dusk, in its flaxen summer coat. The house, like a 10-point buck nodding on a shady bank, as if lapping from the river. She choreographed our advance out of the west, camouflaged in North Face jackets and New Balance sneakers. Papa hushed the baby strapped to his chest in a baby Bjorn. At a quarter click, he signaled for us to egress the realtor's Escalade. The elder children knew to hide our numbers in a single file. She winked to us once before cocking her musket. Our doting mother, crack shot, an immigrant on the hunt. I decided to take house hunting literally in that poem. And the other one does something slightly different. But let's see. So this next poem, I've decided to read some poems that I haven't read in a while. I think everybody here who has a new book out knows that feeling of giving reading after reading and reading the same poems over and over again. So I'm trying to mix it up a little bit. So I don't really have any reason for picking this one other than I haven't read it in a while. It's called A Story About the Antichrist, and I thought the Antichrist, as I've ever seen that character depicted, never seemed anti enough to the idea of Christ. So I decided to take it a little bit further, I guess with tongue firmly in cheek. But it's called A Story About the Antichrist. The opposite of transubstantiation is a yeast infection, just as the opposite of wine is the grape seed born of a grape fuck. The Antichrist had offered to her SAT prep instructor, which is how she'd landed in detention, now wondering whether a Bordeaux or a Zin converted more readily into platelet and plasma. It must vary by vintner and vessel, she thought, carving a tiny upside-down cross into her desk with a raw corner of her switchblade comb. She'd been itching for a Coors and a long draw off the joint in her sock. Then she prayed to Christ the dean hadn't ratted her out to the home folk, as if Christ were more just an idea. But she knew Christ was just an idea, and she still thought it was weird she'd never read a single elegy for the guy, except in the way the whole religion is an elegy for the guy, which she mostly admired for its choral arrangements and galloping pastors, for how it kept mistaking epileptics for saints or for demons, for its unrepentant gore and the soft lighting of the midnight mass at Christmas, and the blood in its cups and the flesh on its tongues, none of which she would change a bit, she thought. She'd do it all exactly the same. I'll call that my Christmas poem. And a lot of these poems were, like I said, written during the pandemic. So I'm going to read a pandemic poem. This is actually a poem that I wrote in the book. It says for RA. That's my friend Ruth Askern, who has been a friend of mine for years. And we were texting during the pandemic, and this poem was kind of born loosely of an update from Ruth. I had asked how things were going, and she sent me this really funny text, and I just kind of started riffing off of it and wrote this poem called Quarantine Bardo. Bardo is an idea in Buddhism. It's sort of equivalent to purgatory, I think. Like that might be the nearest Western idea. So Quarantine Bardo for Ruth. And today we debated the selective logics of cannibalism over hot dogs on the fire escape. Ragtag squadrons of houseflies gathered at the screen door, plotting a next daring incursion. Like a suicide cult with attention deficit disorder, we quipped. Pesky nucleotides dropped anchor all along the coasts of our bodies. But people were still out, walking their dogs and kids. A neighbor we once knew set up her Celesta on the stoop and played John Prine covers all evening long. So all evening long, alive music stole across the terrain, off the urgent care clinic and through the bank drive-through, before it infiltrated the ironwork fencing the cemetery beneath the L tracks. A train flew over. Nobody was on it but me. Let's see, just two more. I guess these are two kind of loosely Chicago poems. This, I don't know where this poem came from. It is a vaguely true story, except for the part where I never had a cat. I never owned a cat, but the poem's about a guy who owns a cat. So you can decide whether it's true or completely false. I'm not sure. It has two titles. One is Palace of Amenhotep. Um, I must have at some point been reading something about Amenhotep and the pyramids and decided to have a character with a cat named Amenhotep. The alternate title is 20th Century Elegy. And it was written, I think, largely out of nostalgia, which is very evident, I think, right away. Palace of Amenhotep. No pharaoh does miss his kitty any more than I miss the dive bars of Chicago, 1998. Wood paneled, red lettered, dank and cozy as confessional booths, with a single knobbed television in one corner and an elder in a respirator ad on mute between innings when I couldn't imagine my face affixed to a breathing machine, I'd say to the cigarette machine, yanking hard and outbounded a pack of camels. But I could have imagined it. If bleeding youth could have permitted more than obsessing over other people's underpants, primetime dramaturgy, shooting Old Crow until 4 a.m. home to the cat I called Amenhotep, and not in honor of the guy. Good old Amenhotep would have gnawed my nose clean off if she'd caught me on a savannah, instead of our great apartment, and flanneled as it was then by loneliness for a whole year that lasted 7 years, so I really felt much older by the end of it, but not any wiser. Amenhotep ever indifferent to my every want and affection. And affection is what I wanted most to give, as the century ended like a dynasty into a perfect ruin, where I am to this day gutted, wrapped, and doggedly intact as a cat in a cat-shaped coffin. I think sometimes my poems are just born of wordplay, and I just kind of keep going. I'm going to end with this poem, which is actually based on a true story, although it probably sounds less true than the one I just read, but it's real. And for Leslie, it's a Miami poem to give you memories of Miami. It's called Lines Composed Upon Changing a Diaper. Marion upstairs is anxious for an update from the extended care facility where her husband is dying. 4 blue macaws bustle through the airspace above the neighborhood. Her footfalls go cursing from room to room. Here, the toddler testifies no poops, but the toddler is lying. I tell him there are 9 spiders living inside the walls for every person in a building. They spin their twilight colonies in an alternate dimension rippling beneath the drywall, termites romancing in the joists. We worry about so much more than ourselves, I tell him. But I tell him it'll all be all right, because it'll all be all right, though not all of us will live long enough to agree. One night, we hear Marion's husband has broken back into himself through a skylight in his own mind, demanding to see his wife again, demanding the nurses release him again, demanding a Reuben from a diner in Brooklyn that folded in 1996. But by morning, he's ghosted back into his framework. From the exterior view, your birth is exactly as inevitable as your death. I know not the schematics of why, baby, but I remain devoted to my task, wiping you clean, buttoning you up, answering your every complaint with a grammar you don't understand. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing the other poets. Thanks, Nicole, for hosting, too.
Thank you so much. I loved hearing those poems. I just finished reading the book not too long ago, so it was nice to hear you read them as well. I feel like there should be an audiobook there.
I would do it if anybody let me, but
In
they
case
probably
Copper Cannon is listening to me.
won't.
Okay, you
Yeah,
never
that's
know.
right.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll go to Leslie now. Leslie Sainz is the author of Have You Been Long Enough at Table, which is out now from Tin House, and she's the daughter of Cuban exiles. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming from the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, the Yale Review, Kenyon Review, American Poetry Review, and elsewhere, and she is a 3-time National Poetry Series finalist. and has received fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, Canto Mundo, and the Stadler Center for Poetry and Literary Arts at Bucknell University. Originally from Miami, she lives in Vermont and now works as the managing editor of the New England Review. Welcome, Leslie.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you to my fellow poets. Yeah, this is lovely. So I'm going to read about 5 or 6 poems from Have You Been Long Enough at Table, my debut poetry collection, which came out at the end of September. And I think I'll be less risky and probably just read what I have been reading as the book has taken me around the country. And just a short preamble, I guess. I'll say that fundamentally, I think of this as a collection that explores codependency, both within family systems and between nations. So I'm going to read the first poem in the collection, which is dedicated to Los Balseros. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Los Balseros are the Cuban boat people who risk their lives building makeshift rafts from unconventional materials to flee communist Cuba and hopefully reach the southernmost point of the United States, which is about 90 miles away. So this is Ño, para los balseros. There is no country where the dead don't float. Men and children going, having gone lung wet across thickened water. Be it the body to know what's missing, to call back the colors. At sea, the stomach is a bugle, though I've heard it called a scream. Oil drums, headless as monarchs, styrofoam on the knees, said of regimes under or over, here or there. The orchids are lovely this time of year, and the women writing. What covers the land and is the land, much in us still. I should warn you too, some folks on the call already know this, but my partner and I just adopted a new kitten, little Alfredo, and I'm expecting him to start howling at any minute. So apologies in advance. So I think I can hear my neighbor outside. So if you hear any kind of background noise, apologies. This next poem I'm going to read is titled A Story of Love and Faith, La Milagrosa, which follows the myth of La Milagrosa, which has become sort of a patron saint in Cuba. It was a woman who had died during childbirth. And then when they excavated her body, they found the child died as well. When they excavated the body, they found that the child in death had crawled up to the mother's chest. And so there's a mythology around that, and she's become the symbol of fertility. And a lot of people actually make a pilgrimage to the cemetery in Havana where she's buried, hoping to bless their own pregnancies. A story of love and faith, La Milagrosa. Near prayer and not. Pink, red flowers, orange and yellow flowers, and white. In this very moment, for different reasons, this is as specific as I can be in both languages. Day of the Holy Cross, she dies femininely on Dia de la Cruz. Exactly who performs the miracle? The dead and buried son shimmies to his mother's dead and buried breast to suckle. Miracle. Thinking of Archimedes' bathwater, the Cuban sculptor gives her density, porelessness, in 20th century Carrera. Exactly. It is true statues are cruel when they're accurate. It is still true that statues are cruel when they're not. On the edge of my cowardice, reason. Who exactly could call me by name in that cemetery? Gladiolus, ginger, lilies. Young women are a series of images. We are regimes. All right. This poem is titled Glassware. And so I grew up in a conservative Fox News home. I recently was back in Miami for Miami Book Fair, where I got to hang out with Nicole for a little bit. It was great. Um, and yeah, my parents still have Fox News on 24/7. I mean, it's remarkable, honestly. And so this book kind of traces the primary speakers, the evolution of their politics. And so this is kind of the first poem in the collection that in which the speaker is recognizing the sort of attempts at indoctrination that are happening from the family figures. Glassware. 1. Overhearing an argument, something beneath my cheeks like heat, like cowbells. I am at my most probable, most liquid suddenly. I come when called. 2. Over dinner, a man, melting, sells American pillows through the television. The napkins are of a thick paper. The dishware, all rounded, the color of most bandages. I am impressed by my convincing father and loyal mother. Their face veins make clear they are not lying to themselves, not themselves. Faithfully, I am a large shard made of their smaller shards. If you were to turn my ears inside out, hot skin, sleep, only trust your family. 3. My father used to blow glass in California, sell plated jewelry from a dark gray suitcase, have regrets. My mother worked for Eastern Airlines and ate very little. Now, my mother lives alone and with my father in Miami. My father lives with my mother and some days himself. 4. When I am hurt, my sorry skull vibrates, needs sleep. I was barefoot when glass appeared on the floor. This time, most times, rage to keep it company. When no one apologizes, my eyes roll out of my head as packets of fake sugar. 5. Shortly after the revolution, children, students, worked the sugarcane fields. I hear this because it is told to me in the kitchen by my hurt parents. In 1964, a 12-year-old boy named Arnaldo Carrillo was said to have cut 7,608 pounds of cane a day. Fidel holds still the record, 9,230 pounds. 6. Sugar appears in many American fantasies. The convincing 60s sugar glass made to simulate broken windows and windshields. I will never taste it. It doesn't harm the actor, it harms the actor, argues the internet. Transparent, brittle sugar. When I study the 60s, other time periods, my eyes turn red like from cameras, or rum, or furnaces, or sand. Let's see. Keeping in spirit, I'm going to read a Miami poem. Really, it's a Noche Buena poem, which is very nostalgic for me because I'm going to be staying in Vermont for Noche Buena, so I'm thinking of all the delicious food I'm missing on. So this is Still Life with Christ Aromatics. The night, good, is a gorgeous clone of itself. Thinking of the slick roaches defecating in the silverware trays, 3 times only. In 2 stacked plastic bags, 5 sour oranges pecking like past selves. The Baroque garlic, the 1.5 small onions. I squint at the tip of my nose until it becomes abuelitas. Gorgeous good night with salt pork, cumin, oregano. Salt in the machacador softening. Poinsettias court the window, court the light. Accidentally, inevitably, I leave some skin cells while retrieving 4 bay leaves. Never ever salt the beans, says the father whose stiff fingers cannot shatter the cooking wine bottle because it is plastic. At midnight, the hair on my shoulder is someone else's. Okay, so I'll do two more. Maybe one more. I'll do one more. This one is dedicated to Elena Milagro de Hoyos, which most people aren't familiar with. Um, my mother really loves watching like the smut of the History Channel. So like Ancient Aliens, or any of the sort of like haunted ghost towns in the United States. And so there was some program that was tracing haunted locales in South Florida, more specifically Key West. And I learned of the story of Elena Milagro de Hoyos, which is rather gruesome and is oftentimes spun as a sort of love story, which is very twisted and inaccurate. I won't go into what tragedy fell upon her or was acted upon her, but for a long time, I just kept thinking about her lack of agency and how her humanity had been stripped from her, both physically and also in the ways in which the story of her life solely revolves around what happened to her and not the life that she actually lived. So this is my attempt at honoring her. At the center of the story and utterly left out, para Elena Milagro de Hoyos. I thoughts, all any of us have. I'm having the thought, it's too late in my life to stop crying. Elena, can we practice this? I notice I'm having the thought, it's too late in my life to stop crying. There are things beyond belief, like garlic, like we have the same wrists. How did you place yours when you sang sweetly? Elena, yesterday I saw the reddest fire hydrant imaginable. It wasn't beyond belief, but I was startled. That kind of red should only exist inside of us, I think. I wish neither of us could recognize that color. Do you believe we want enough of ourselves? Once a week, I walk to the same construction site a mile away from my home. I kick one rock out of formation from a larger pile of rocks. No one sees me. No men have punished me. Elena, I'm saying no men have punished me because of these walks. Rudolph Valentino. Did you know he was nearsighted? Elena, your favorite actor was nearsighted. I feel quite unreal, he said once, maybe twice, into a beautiful microphone. You and I, the difference between us. I look severe. I don't like having my picture taken. I just don't. I had the nightmare again about choking on a bay leaf. Real fear like girls are real. In real life, it happens most when someone else has served you. Elena, on accident and not, when have you ignored the dangers? Elena, Elena, they were wrong. Elena, our mothers were wrong about kindness. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, it's so amazing to hear people read the poems from the books you've just read. I just enjoy that so much. So yes, we need a audiobook for you as well. Leslie, who do I need to call at Tin House to make it happen? You can
Good
tell
question. I don't know.
you can DM me. We'll figure this out. I think there should be more audiobooks. I just really love them. So thank you again for those poems. And we have one final reader tonight. Pull up her bio here. All right. Pantea Tofangchi is an Iranian American poet, writer, and graphic designer. She writes poems, essays, stories, and plays. Her work has been published in Plowshares, Welter Atlanta Review, in which she won the International Merit Award in other journals. She was selected as a finalist for the National Poetry Series in 2016 and the Georgia Poetry Prize in 2018. She's an award-winning graphic designer and art director, and she has led teams to produce publications, books, and motivational designs. She's taught at the University of Baltimore, and earlier in her career, she was a journalist for 18 years for newspapers and magazines. Her poetry collection, Glazed with War, was published in 2023 by Mason Jar Press. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause for Pantea.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting this, Nicole, and for having me. It was so wonderful hearing you both. It was amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and looking forward to holding your books and reading them. So this collection is it's actually a memoir written in poetry. It's my memoir of the time that I spent in war. I was 8 when the Iran-Iraq war started, and I was in senior high when it ended. It took me decades to write, to decide to write it. And when I decided to write it, it took me forever to, make myself go forward as we try to hide from what hurts us, or what, especially since we realize later in life that how much we have hurt. Because when we are kids, we don't, it was normal to me. Everyone around me was going through the same thing. So I'm going to start with the first poem called In Second Grade. The war started, and we carried it like an unexpected rain, weighted down wet and thick. We carried ourselves every morning, heavy, fire brick in our backpacks. It was there, part of our routine, anti-aircraft sounds, sirens, Tasmim Kobra, fear, Hasana Kojai, bombs, and death. But at 8, carrying a bag filled with pencils, red and black, eraser, pencil sharpener, ruler, napkins, and a foldable cup, an apple, feta cheese and walnut sandwich, along with war, was normal to me. So the poems are written in a child point of view, and it's chronological. So the voice changes as as I grow in war. This is still from it's like a child, called The Round Window. Sunrise in September used to be cold. The smell of naringi nobar, the sound of teaspoon dancing in a large teacup while my papa sweetened his tea. Our dark kitchen, my mama, my dad, my baby sister, Nader. Memory has a face. Memory is thin and sharp. I see me, standing on the street corner, looking up at our apartment. What if I go to school and our home is gone while I'm gone too? There stands my mama, her face smiling at me through the round window among the green leaves. The school is a few blocks away. Doesn't matter whether the bomb drops at our home or at your school. We will still be together, she tells me. I throw her kisses. She always stays until I disappear. I think I'm just a little bit older in this poem, called Thin Us. So thin, the life we had. Sometimes I could see inside my stomach and inside my sister's. The attacks started. We were sitting in the corner of the living room, away from the chandelier. My mother didn't want us to sit under it when we were under attack. My sister and I, her doll and mine, thin and tight next to one another, looking at our parents who were reading the newspaper by candlelight, pretending to be relaxed. The life we had, so thin. In a second, a loud noise and some other families' lives, thinner than ours, ruined. Let's see, should I read this? Let me see, what are we doing? Okay. The red umbrella. The sound of each drop on my red umbrella echoed white, like chiffon, soft, transparent music in my ears. A rumble of thunder roared. The sound of my heartbeat rose and took over the music. My feet walked faster and faster, my brain bemused. Was it a thunder, an anti-aircraft, or a bomb? Or perhaps a car crashed into an innocent tree? Then the red siren squealed from Mr. Ali's fruit shop, and I let go of the red umbrella and ran toward the school, only a block away, but I couldn't reach. My feet were heavy and light at the same time. At the school gate, our principal grabbed me. I was a stone running down a hill. "You're okay, she said. I'm not going to read this. Let's go here. All right. The same new day. War didn't stop us from wanting a new doll. War didn't stop us from having birthday parties. War didn't stop me from wanting another baby sister or brother. It stopped my mom from wanting another baby, though. War didn't stop my family's passion for new plants and flowers. Didn't stop my parents from providing. And the war didn't stop either. We were all there, us, life, death, and war, like a family with a lot of issues. I'm going to move forward to the last section where I'm in high school, so I'm much older. And the war was at a point that we had to leave Tehran, the capital, and go somewhere supposedly safer. The green sedan. We left, leaving my father behind. Nothing is going to happen to him, my mother assured us. We drove 1,400 kilometers, the never-ending journey, a hole in a pocket, a bad smell stuck in nostrils. I can still smell the inside of the car, the cheap, filthy motel, the only one available. Not reaching wasn't hard. What we had left behind was beyond the imaginable. How many families left and came back to the ruins? How many left the ruins for the unknown? We were the lucky ones. Perhaps we still are. In a bright green pecan, my sister, my mom and I, my uncle, his in-laws, and their cat drove from north to south, from missile rains to the turquoise of the Persian Gulf, supposedly more peaceful. So I started school there because we didn't know how long it would be. Bitter me, generous people. I was in a school in a new city under the same sky. I went to school in a Navy camp for the kids with Navy parents. The rules didn't apply in the time of war for the victims. They accepted me generously. I was bitter, and they were too kind to me. It made me feel worse. I missed my dad, who, despite the stupid war and missiles and bombs, had to work and stay in Tehran. I miss my friends, my home, Nader, Navid, and Yegane, my rest of the family. But there we were, a tablecloth that didn't go with the rest of the furniture. So this is the last poem that I'm going to read, called Bandar Abbas, which is a city in south of Iran, where we were living at the moment. And this is dedicated to my uncle, who is no longer with us. We didn't leave at my uncle's house long. Each day at school, though, felt like a year. I cried every day, years that is. It rained purple irises in my heart all days long. I was now living in the city that occupies a strategic position on the narrow Strait of Hormuz. Like our future, only narrower, our lives on the edge. Back in my uncle's house, I would pretend. After all, happiness is not an organ. Nobody is born with it. You have to earn it, like a chemistry or anthropology degree, or even politics. I would smile and play with the kids and even watch cheesy Indian movies and laugh. From the bottom of my heart, I would also stare at the phone, eager to hear it ring, to hear my dad's voice. I would also listen to the radio, secretly, to know the areas that were hit in Tehran. Nobody knew but my uncle. He would call from work and assure me that he spoke with my dad after every explosion. I knew he was lying. He knew I knew he was lying, as if we were enjoying this lie, a joyful sin. We were very good at pretending.
Wow, thank you so much. That was so emotional. You have such a beautiful voice. It was so great to hear you read those poems. You know, I'd read them on Michael sent me a copy of your book, and I read it. It's something you have to read, I think, slowly, because it's heavy, but it's so beautiful, and to hear you read it out loud was a tremendous honor. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. So we have a few minutes left here. I know we don't have a whole lot of, actually, we don't have any questions in the chat. I don't know if any of the audience members have any questions for our readers, or if the readers have any questions for them, for each other. If no one has any questions, we can also end here, but I do like to give people the option. Is there anyone who has any questions for our readers? No? Okay, well, I'm gonna thank everyone for taking this time. This is our season finale, season 1 of the Be Well reading series. So I'm calling it our year-end celebration. So thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to upload this to the cloud, so that people who weren't able to be with us can watch it, and you can also share it with your friends and family. And I do want to make a quick announcement that this series is usually the first Thursday of each month. In January, we're going to have a reading on the 4th, at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be Sarah Ali and Jane Huffman and Sarah Moore Wagner. It's going to be a New Year celebration. It's going to be a beautiful reading. So you can look to that on ELJ Edition's Eventbrite page. So I want to thank you all once again for being here, and I want to wish you all a great night. Be safe, be well. Happy holidays if you celebrate them, and I hope to see you all next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you to both of you too.
Likewise, this was so fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was amazing. Thanks.
Night, everyone.